Hello and welcome back to another Dare to Game video. Today we're playing Tainted Grail, the Fall of Avalon, and we're doing the third in our series of very specific armor guides. So we've already done light and medium armor, now we're moving on to heavy armor. So these ones are going to be the ones specifically intended for tanking melee damage. Like I've said in previous videos, in this series you could use them hypothetically for anything, but that's what they're best at. With that being said, we're going to be following the same structure as we did in the previous videos. It's all going to be blue quality armor. Whenever possible, I will tell you how or where to find each of these sets, or at least the major pieces for these sets. The best case scenario is we have 5 pieces that match a full set. Usually that's not the case, and when it's not the case, we'll fill in the other pieces with ones that either look really good with the set or match it from a bonus perspective, you know, like they have the same type of buffs added to them, so they make sense to put them together. All of these are plus 16, just to keep it all comparable, since, you know, when I started making these videos, I already had a lot of different armor and weapon pieces all over the place in value. 16 or plus 16 is where it all levels off, and you start seeing the same cost for every single upgrade, so it no longer increases after that. And all of them have their weight reduced all the way down to 0, so keep that in mind. I'll probably show at some point those systems in this game, just in case you've never experimented with them, but it's all fairly simple and straightforward. So let's just dive on in and start off with the one that comes in at number 6. And so the one that comes in at number 6 is what I'm calling the Last Man armor, and the reason for that is because we have 2 matching pieces that are, you know, named like that. So we have the Face of the Last Man, which has 21 armor and increases your melee damage by 3%, and the Chest Plate of the Last Man, which has 26 armor and increases your melee damage by 3%. So both of those give you more melee damage, and just from a broad overview have some pretty solid armor stats. Then we filled in the rest with the Traveler's Pants, which have 18 armor and increase your movement speed multiplier by 5% when not in combat. The Traveler's Boots, which have 19 armor and increase movement speed multiplier by 10% when not in combat. And the Parrying Gauntlets, which have 18 armor and enhance the parrying window. So altogether, this one is obviously one intended for melee combat. We have some solid armor value and increases to our melee damage output. Our gauntlets give us an increased parrying window, which is very useful because parrying is very important in this game if you don't want to run down your stamina or take a bunch of damage. And then the Traveler's Pants and Traveler's Boots make us move faster when we're not fighting. So it's a fairly solid hybrid adventurer suit. If you wanted to make it heavier, you could just swap out the pants, boots, and gauntlets for the knight's armor. I think it looks weird, which is why I didn't go with it, or the main reason I didn't go with it, but it would just turn this into a variation of the knight's armor, so you'd have higher armor stats across the board. With that being said, with these pieces, we're looking at a total armor value of 102, so it's still very tanky. As far as getting your hands on these pieces, it's fairly simple. I don't know where to find the parrying gauntlets. I looted them off a body somewhere in the world, but I couldn't possibly tell you where. But the Last Man stuff and the Traveler stuff are set locations. So we'll start with the Last Man stuff. You'll actually find them in the Blood Lake Cave. So you can see this red circle here. There is a cave. All you have to do is jump into the lake and swim down, and right about here, or possibly right here, it's on this side, you'll find a cave entrance. You go inside, and the very first room you're in will include a person who can be a pretty tough boss fight, so make sure you don't go into it unprepared. But you kill him, and he will have this stuff as well as a parrying sword on him. And that is how you get your hands on the Last Man's face, or head, or whatever it was called, and the cuirass. As far as the Traveler's Pants and Traveler's Boots go, they are quite simple to get. You can get them right here in the Horns of the South. Immediately when you walk in the gate, turn to your right, and you will find this lady right here, Orlaith, and you can buy them from her. So you can buy the full Traveler set from her. Once you've done that, you just upgrade them to where you want, add your relic slots, etc., and you will have this exact suit of armor. So that is number 6, the Last Man armor. Let's move on to number 5. So at number 5, we have the Keeper's armor, which is the first one we've looked at in any of these videos that has a matching cape to go with it. It's not the only cape in the game, but it's the first one where it matches the set, which is why I haven't included one thus far. Plus this one has a pretty cool skill bonus for that cape. But this one has a armor value of 106, so it's just a little bit better than the Last Man armor. I also like the way it looks, and it's fun to get it because then, you know, you kind of match in with the whole Horns of the South vibe. But as far as this one, it's made up of 5 matching pieces, and then the helmet is, or the headpiece is different, and you could use a few different ones, but I thought this one looked the best with it. But you have the Keeper's armor, which has 24 armor and increases your critical damage by 10%. The Keeper's Pants, which have 22 armor and increase stamina regeneration by 10%. The Keeper's Boots, which have 21 armor and increase critical damage, or critical chance by 10%. The Keeper's Gloves, which have 20 armor and increase your attack speed by 10%. And the Keeper's Cape, which at plus 16 increases incoming healing by 84%, so it makes it way more effective to heal once you've, you know, upgraded. It obviously doesn't start at 84%, or at least I don't believe it does, and it doesn't have any basic armor value, so you know, at face value, you might think that it's not worth upgrading, but it increases your healing. So there's that. Then I included the Faded Hood, which I don't know where to find that piece. It's random loot. I found quite a few Faded Hoods in the game, so I do not believe it's unique. But this one has 19 armor and increases your spell power by 10%. So basically, this suit of armor is tanky. You can use it for melee combat, but it's also versatile enough to use for every playstyle. So if you wanted to make it a mage use one, you could obviously put some relics in to make that more of an option along with some jewelry. But typically the way that I see this is kind of a ranger build. So a sword and board, possibly with a bow and arrow type combo. With that all being said, this one is fairly straightforward to get, but it does take a little while. All of the items that you'll get for the vast majority of the Keeper's set are Keeper items, and you get them by becoming a Keeper of the South. And you won't do that until you've pretty much finished the storyline for the Horns of the South mission. Once you have proven you're worthy and gone back and talked to the captain, he will then just give you the suit of armor. You can get your hands on a bunch of sets of Torn Keeper armor, but they don't have as good of armor value and don't have the enchantments on them. So you could get one that looks exactly like this without completing the story, or at least pretty much exactly like this without doing that, but it won't have these stats or the enchantments. So you do have to do the story to unlock this one. But that's number 5, the Keeper armor, which like I said has 106 armor value. Let's move on to number 4. All right, coming in at number 4, we have the Knight's armor, which you can see it's just a generic suit of not super historically authentic medieval plate armor. It doesn't look horrible, but there's some major problems, like how heavy duty the cuirass and even the large pauldrons are, but then absolutely no upper arm armor, and nothing on the groin or the upper legs. It's not great from a historical perspective, but it looks fine, and it does have an Armet style helmet, which I always like. But this one is made up of the Knight's helmet, which has 21 armor and reduces the stamina cost by 36%, the Knight's breastplate, which has 26 armor and you regenerate stamina 33% faster after overexerting yourself, the Knight's greaves, which have 21 armor and increase your max stamina by 23, the Knight's boots, which have 20 armor and increase your max stamina by 21, and the Knight's gauntlets, which have 20 armor and increase your max stamina by 23. So it's a very useful set as far as melee combat armor goes. It gives you a lot of physical protection and also has some boosts that make it so that even though, you know, before you lighten it, this is a relatively heavy suit of armor, it makes it so your stamina is not running out so much. So that is the Knight's armor. It has 108 total armor value. As far as getting your hands on this one, it's actually pretty common. There is a lot of enemies in the game that will wear either a full suit of this or a partial suit, and so you can collect it just by looting it, but the more direct and reliable way is to craft it. So all you have to do is come to the Horns of the South and do the missions where you don't have to. I believe you immediately have access to crafting it, but I do recommend doing the missions where you smith armor for this guy here, whose name I keep forgetting, Osbert, because, you know, they're pretty good suits of armor, and we've talked about them in previous videos. But if you want to craft the Knight's armor, you go to the grindstone, handcrafting, and then you just scroll down until you see it. So you can see that the Knight's boots take 2 bones, 4 iron ore, and 4 leather to craft. The Knight's breastplate takes 12 iron ore and 8 leather. The Knight's gauntlets take 2 bones, 4 iron ore, and 4 leather. The Knight's greaves requires 6 iron ore, 6 leather, and 4 wool fiber. And the helmet is 6 iron ore and 8 leather. So pretty simple and straightforward ingredients for crafting these, so nothing bad there. As far as the rest of it, if you want to upgrade it, you know, to make sure your stats are at plus 16 or whatever you decide you want to go to, could go. I've never seen how high it goes, but I assume it doesn't stop, or maybe it goes all the way to 100 or something. I've never tried because it would be really expensive. But you can upgrade them here, you can attach your relic slots here, and you can reduce their weight here. All of those things are going to require resources and money. But that is the Knight's armor, which comes in at number 4. Let's move on to number 3. All right, at number 3, we have the Torn Senue armor, which has 109 armor value, so just slightly better than the Knight's armor. You could make it dramatically better by replacing 2 of the items with heavier pieces, but I thought this looked better and, you know, fit the theme of this suit of armor better. So this one is made up of 3 matching pieces and then 2 other pieces. So we have the Torn Senue mask, which has 23 armor and increases your physical damage by 5%. The Torn Senue husk, which has 25 armor and increases your physical damage by 10%. The Torn Senue grips, which have 22 armor and increase your physical damage by 5%. And then we included the Rogue's Step pants, which have 20 armor and increase your dash speed by 30%. And the Traveler's boots, which have 19 armor and increase your movement speed multiplier by 10% when not in combat. So you could just go with the Knight's trousers and boots if you wanted slightly heavier armor. I think this looks better and makes it a more versatile suit, but overall it's pretty weird and gross and fantasy looking. So I feel like this is exactly the style that some people were really into. It's not personally my style, but I can objectively agree that it looks well designed. And like I said, it works really well for a lot of different styles of combat. Obviously, the best one is going to be direct melee or ranged because it's giving you boosts to your physical damage, but it also has really good protection, so you could use it for essentially anything. So as far as getting your hands on these things, we've already talked about the Traveler's Boots, which you can purchase right by the gate of the Horns of the South. The Rogue Step Pants, I don't remember where to get those, but I got them somewhere. And then, of course, the Torn Sinew Grips, Torn Sinew Husk, and the Torn Sinew Mask can be crafted. So these ones are going to be a part of that mission chain that I talked about right here in the Horns of the South, where you will talk to Osbert, and he will give you a series of crafting assignments where you have to successfully craft a suit of armor and then show it to him, and then he will give you schematics for the next one. And that is how you'll gain access to the Torn Sinew armor, which you can find in here. So the Torn Sinew Grips require 2 meteorite ore, 4 Grindylow claws, and 4 Grindylow teeth. The Torn Sinew Husk requires 4 meteorite ore, 10 Grindylow claws, and 10 Grindylow teeth. And the Torn Sinew Mask requires 3 meteorite ore, 5 Grindylow claws, and 5 Grindylow teeth. So this one is actually, the materials for this one can be a little bit harder to find, but I can show you where to find them. So there are 2 locations to find meteorite ore. Actually, there's probably more than that, but there's 2 that I always remember, and that worked for me. So the first one is going to be if you head all the way over to the right side of the map over here, or the east side, I should say, the wreck of the Andraste here, this little island. Right here on the island, you'll find a meteorite ore on the side of the island. So you can mine that and get 3 meteorite ore from that. And then the second one is over here by the abandoned village waypoint. You'll actually find it down to the right of that fast travel point in this lower section. Behind this building on the cliff, you'll find, I believe, an iron ore node, and right next to it, a meteorite ore. So that's another 3. And those respawn every day or 2. So all you have to do is you can go get both of those, and that's 6 meteorite ore, and then wait and do it again. Like I said, I'm pretty sure there's other locations, but I can never remember where they are. So those are the 2 that I use. So that's how you can get meteorite ore. As far as the Grindylow claws and teeth, there are Grindylows all over the map, but the way that I like to do it, because it worked the fastest for me, is over here by the Hunter's Camp. So you can see we're by the Horns of the South Fortress. The Hunter's Camp is not far outside. You'll find 2 or 3 Grindylows right along this road here, and so you can kill those. Both the teeth and the claws are random loot from them, but they drop relatively frequently. So you can go to those ones, or the Archspire here, there's a couple Grindylows in the general area, and that's another spot. So basically, if you just, go to the Horns of the South, wait a day, and then go to the Hunter's Camp, and go from the Hunter's Camp to the Archspire, and make sure you kind of snoop around this whole area, you can sometimes find up to like 6 Grindylow on that path. And if you do that, you can loot yourself plenty of Grindylow teeth and claws. But that's how you can get the materials to craft this armor. So that one is a bit more involved, but it is a pretty solid set. So that's number 3, the Torn Sinew armor, which has 109 armor value. Let's move on to our runner-up at number 2. All right, our runner-up at number 2 is the Blood-Soaked armor, which is actually, weight-wise, before you've reduced it, it actually falls much more in the light-medium section, and it's very assassin-y, but it has such good armor value that it has to go in the heavy tank section, in my opinion. So it's one of my favorite suits in the game, despite how silly it looks. So you can see it's very red and, like I said, assassin themed. It's made up of mostly matching parts. We have 4 matching parts for this one, and they're the Blood-Soaked hood, which has 23 armor and increases your sneak damage by 10%. The Blood-Soaked vest, which has 25 armor and increases your sneak damage by 20%. The Blood-Soaked gloves, which have 22 armor and increase your sneak damage by 10%. And the Blood-Soaked boots, which have 21 armor and increase your sneak damage by 10%. So total, when wearing all of those, that's a 50% increase in your sneak damage. So very, very deadly if you're, being an assassin. Then the other piece is the Traveler's Pants. I chose these because they have a red tint to them and they match the general look of the armor. You could use whatever you want. These ones have 18 armor and increase your movement speed multiplier by 5% when not in combat. So, like I said, they don't really play into it from a stat-wise, but from an appearance-wise, they look perfect with this set of armor. So, that is the Blood-Soaked armor, which also has 109 total armor value, just like the Torn Sinew set. I think this one looks better, and I would say that, at least in my opinion, considering it works really well for the, the whole sneak assassin vibe, which works well for a stealth archer, especially with, the other boots that you could possibly apply to this. It's one of my absolute favorite suits of armor in the game, so that's why I put it ahead of the Torn Sinew armor. As far as getting your hands on it, pretty simple and straightforward. So the Traveler's Pants are part of the Traveler's set, which can be purchased from that lady right down there, as I've already referenced, just for clarity's sake, so you understand who I'm talking about and believe that I'm not lying. Her name's Orlay, and you can purchase them from her. So there you can see the Traveler's Pants for 400 gold. Then the rest of these items can be crafted, so we will just be going back up to the forge in the Horns of the South. So you can see right over here by Osbert, go to your grindstone or any grindstone anywhere on the map, go to handcrafting, and they will be up here. So you'll be able to craft the blood-soaked boots, which you'll need 4 red caps, 4 leather, and 4 iron teeth. The blood-soaked gloves, which are 3 red caps, 3 leather, and 3 iron teeth. The blood-soaked hood, which is 5 red caps, 5 leather, and 5 iron teeth. And the blood-soaked vest, which is 10 red caps, 10 leather, and 10 iron teeth. So you do have to get quite a bit of materials for this one, and they are all loot-based. But the good news is, well, I mean, the leather's easy to come by. The good news is the red caps and the iron teeth are not super rare, and you just get them from the red cap mob enemy, which is literally all over the entire map. They're kind of a fast-moving enemies, so some people might be annoyed by them because they're smaller in stature and they move really fast and they can actually deal decent damage. So they can be tricky, but you usually find them in groups of 2 or 3. They're definitely more common in the north portion of the map, not up into the mountains, but basically this circle here, I run into them all the time. So I don't really have a set location. Basically, when I was grinding this one out for resources, I just went to this region and traveled around in a grid pattern between all of the different points, and I found tons of them, and they drop iron teeth and red caps. So that is the blood-soaked armor with 109 total armor value at number 2. Let's move on to our number 1 best suit of heavy armor that I found so far in the game. And so at number 1, we have the Flame Gorged armor. This one has a total armor value of 113, making it the best out of all these ones on this list. And I think it looks pretty cool. It's obviously leaning pretty heavily into the dark fantasy vibe, but I think it looks pretty solid. So this one is made up of 3 matching pieces. The Flame Gorged Maw, which is the helmet, which has 24 armor and increases your critical damage by 20%. The Flame Gorged Breastplate, which has 25 armor, and it says when you kill an enemy, you trigger an explosion, dealing 50 damage within 5 meters, so that's an area of effect damage. The Flame Gorged Gauntlets, which have 23 armor, and they increase damage by 33% if the enemy is burning, so that's useful, and it's stacked, especially if you use a weapon that also does fire damage. It's very effective with this suit of armor. Then we don't have pants or boots for this set, so I just did the Knight's Greaves, which have 21 armor and increase your max stamina by 23, and the Knight's Boots, which have 20 armor and increase your max stamina by 21. So both of those give us a stamina boost as well as some pretty solid armor value. And I think they look pretty solid with the suit. So that is our most powerful tanky suit of armor, and like I said, as long as you pair it with some pretty solid fire weaponry, it is pretty hard to top this one for damage output as well as defensibility. So the Knight's armor we've already taken a look at. The Flame Gorged is another set that you can craft. So right here in the Horns of the South, you can head on over, and like I said, once we've done our missions with Osbert, we'll be able to craft all sorts of stuff, and the Flame Gorged armor can be crafted. So you can see there right here, the Flame Gorged Breastplate, the Flame Gorged Gauntlets, and the Flame Gorged Maw. So starting with the breastplate, you need 10 burnt skin, 10 meteorite ore, and 10 hot goo. The Flame Gorged Gauntlets, you need 5 burnt skin, 2 meteorite ore, and 5 hot goo. And for the Maw, which is the helmet, 10 burnt skin, 5 meteorite ore, and 5 hot goo. So you are going to have to go and loot all of those things. So I'll show you some locations again. So starting us off with the meteorite ore, which we've discussed already in this video. The first place to go is the wreck of the Andraste, this island out here, and right here on the beach, close to this point on the map, you'll find a meteorite ore in the side of the cliff. Then the next place is right up past there to the abandoned village, which you can see our cursor on there. And down in the right section behind this large building in the center, you'll find another meteorite ore on the cliff in the back. And you can mine those every 1 or 2 days. They will respawn as long as you're not sitting next to them. I find it pretty quick to go back and forth between those 2 spots. I know I've seen meteorite ore elsewhere on this map, I just can't remember where it was. So there's possible that there's 5 or 6 different nodes that you could go around and circle to do every time, but I typically just go back and forth between these 2 every couple days, and that helps me build it up quick enough. The other things, the burnt flesh and the hot goo, you can get from I forget what they're called, but they're the flame enemy that runs around with a burning thing on their back, and they try to get close to you and then blow up and deal a bunch of fire damage. There's a bunch of them down here in the sunken village, so that's where I always go to grind them. There's like 5 or 6 of them scattered amongst the corpse eaters undead and drowners down here. So just go down to the sunken village fast travel point, kill all of them, loot all their stuff, then go back up to the Horns of the South, wait 2 days, and do it again. Basically, when I was looting to get this, I did that, and then I would also get my meteorite ore, and then I'd wait 2 days, and then I'd go down, etc. You know, rinse and repeat. And that is how you can get your hands on all of the crafting resources to actually craft the Flame Gorged armor, which you can see here. So that is the best suit out of, like I said, following our strict, you know, only blue gear rule, or at least the ones that I've gotten so far. So, with that being said, if you have any requests, if you want to see some of the white quality armor making suits, because there are some pretty cool suits that you can do with that, a lot more knightly stuff, or if you want weapon videos or anything like that, let me know. But in any case, thanks for watching, and have a nice day, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching another Dare to Game video. If you liked this video, please leave a like and a comment. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. If you like my content and would like to support this channel, consider becoming a member today for as little as $1.99 a month. It makes a huge difference. But in any case, thanks for watching and have a nice day. I'll see you next time.